Hello, everyone. How are you doing? How's it going? How y'all doing today? I hope you are well. I am Dr. Tammy, your success strategist and literacy educator. I help you strategize how to move in the direction of more and prepare for what's next. And today we are back discussing, let me grab my book. We're discussing What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker by Damon Young. And we are moving right along in the book. So if you haven't picked up your copy, pick it up. Join us. Let me also put the link up for you to join us in the group. You can join us in the group because we are discussing the book, and this is where you can kind of see the updates and when we're broadcasting and all that good stuff to join us in the comments. If you're joining us today, make sure you say hello in the comments. Say hello to us. Give us an emoji. Say hello. Share this out. If you think you know someone who would benefit or enjoy, hey, Darnell, how are you? Thank you for joining us. If you know someone who would be interested in the discussion, we're going to talk about some interesting things today. Make sure that you share it, tag them, send it to their messenger box. If you're on Facebook, send them the link, whatever. Just share it out. Share. So last week we talked about the first few chapters of the book. And thank you for the hearts. And we were talking about some of the things that you talked about what doesn't kill you makes you blacker. And for those of you that are joining us today, this is the book we're discussing. I have a global online reading community, and we discuss a book each month. This is our July read, but we are discussing it in August because there were a few life events that happened that delayed the discussion. So we are discussing this month. So if you haven't read it, you haven't gotten it, you can grab it. If you have it and you haven't started, you can start. You have a whole nother month to read and discuss with us. So, hey there, sweet Reese. How's it going? Thank you for joining. Hey, Sasha. How's it going? So today I have a discussion leader from the online reading community, Miss Trifanya Osei, and I hope I didn't butcher that up. Who's with us today, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself and just what she does and all that good stuff, and then we're just gonna dive into the next few chapters of the book. And if you're reading with us, we're pretty much discussing through chapter 5 today, so we're at the beginning, and so there's plenty of time to catch up. It's a fast read, and it's good. And it's good, makes you think too. So hey, Trifanya.
Hey, how you doing?
I am great. So introduce yourself and tell the peeps who you are and how they can connect with you and all that good stuff before we get started.
I am Trifanya Osei, also known as Elegant Granny, and I am a restoration strategist. I support victims and survivors of abuse voluntarily during the week through different programs in my community, but I primarily give support to the supporters with educational tools on how to be a great support system, great network system for those they know personally coming out of an abusive situation. Because a lot of people do not know how to help people who are coming out of toxic relationships. They really want to. A lot of them clam up and shut down. And then there are some who do their best to help. And they sometimes make things worse. Sometimes they involve themselves and put themselves in a toxic situation, put themselves in harm. So we don't want them in harm. And we want those who are trying to come out of toxic relationships to come out safely, because a lot of times, the majority of the time, you can't just come out. You have to plan, and there is a way to do that. So that's what I do. And I am here discussing with Dr. Tammy this beautiful read right here. I'm telling y'all, if you have not gotten it, this book is the truth. It really is. It explains things from a male perspective, a Black male perspective, and it's a lot of what we go through as women, especially Black females, how we experience the behavior side from the Black man, as he is talking about what they experience internally as a Black man, and we get the brunt of what they experience, and we're sharing his experience from this read, and we're also going to be talking about our experiences as we experience their how they internalize these things, how they live in America as a Black man, and how we process it as a Black female. So I'm looking forward to this.
I know. There's so much. And I will say that each chapter is so rich with information and topics that lend itself to discussing further. You know, he gives his experience, but it really prompts me to want to just talk about it deeper and get other people's opinions. So we may be asking you questions. As I set this up, we may be asking you questions for your opinions in the comments. So let's just jump right into it. So do we have any poets in the house today or on the replay? Any poets in the room? Any of you that write poetry? I know that Elegant Granny does. Now, Elegant Granny, I'm going to probably go between names. I apologize. But I'm reading the screen today, so I don't say it. But yeah, do any of you write poetry? Because chapter 3, he talks about poetry, and I forgot. Oh, he calls that chapter "Bomb Ass Poetry." So, any of you write any bomb ass poetry? So, Trifanya, tell us. There I go. Tell us about your writing, because I know you write poetry. So, tell me about your writing.
Okay, my poetry is based off of life experiences. And I started in the third or fourth grade. We were in school back in the 70s, and there was this competition going on. And I didn't know what to write on. And it was something the teacher let me know at the last minute, because I had been out sick. And she let me know at the last minute, hey, you since you write so good, go ahead and we're gonna do a challenge on writing poetry. So I did. The only thing I could think of was it was Wednesday, and every Wednesday was pizza day at school. So I did a little poem on pizza, and I won. I actually won.
Hey, food always does it, you know. And in here, it's either food or what he talks about.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's how, and so when I was like, I really won, that was actually my first piece of poetry that I ever did. And it was only maybe like 4 or 5 lines, and I actually won. I couldn't believe I won. And so ever since then, every so often I would just, you know, especially when I got angry, that's when my poetry will come out. If we were in disagreement about something, or someone else in the family, we were in disagreement about something, that's when my poetic side would come out. I had this note composition book, that's what we called it back then, composition book, that I would write my feelings in, and they would all be to Dear God, and it would be a poetic thing.
Help me from using these hands.
Yeah, and I would start with what the matter was, and the problem was like who I'm pissed off with that day, how I felt about them, and what I wanted God to do to these people. But as I continued writing my emotions on this paper in this composition book, my anger just started going down. My level of anxiety, that anger, it just went down. And then by the end of that letter to God, I was actually asking him to bless them. Okay, well, maybe this happened to them this day. And I know by the conversations of the adults that I'm so nosy being in, and I'm supposed to be in a child's place, as they used to always tell us, stay in a child's place. But I would be so nosy in the conversation while I was attending to the younger children, because I was the oldest. I was like, well, maybe such and such happened today. Maybe they lost another job. Maybe something, their hours were cut. And I would say, why don't you bless them with this, 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 this? And then I would tear up the letter because I felt better. I didn't feel that way about that person again, and I would just throw it away. So that's how my poetry started. Fast forwarding into as an adult, I just kept it going. I never, now, like he did in chapter 3, Damon did not start off with personal experiences. He was going through a personal experience trying to woo this girl who actually became his best friend. She wanted to keep it platonic. He wanted to grow it.
You wanted more.
He wanted
he
wanted the
visions
work
of Love Jones.
Yeah. And that was the basis of his relationship with this girl. And Love Jones, he decided he was going to use poetry because a lot of guys in college, that's how they won some of the girls.
I know he said, what, by the time you hit your sophomore year in college, all the guys are writing poetry.
Yes.
Because they have someone they're interested in. So yeah.
And that's what he was doing. He was working hard on that, on Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah, on Tracy. But by the end of chapter 3, you see how his love interest wasn't even about her. It wasn't. It was about validating who he was. It was about validation of self. And it also went back to this one question. This one question as a child was when his best friend, I think his name is Brian, his mom had asked him, he overheard his mom asking him, does he have a girlfriend, like a girlfriend or something?
Yeah. Hey, what's up with this? Yeah.
Yeah, because he's always with Brian, and she never known him to have any girlfriends or anything. So all of his spare time was with her son. And so that raised a question that goes more into chapter 5. But yeah, so it was a validation for who he was as a young Black man.
Well, I'm with the ambassador. I don't write poetry, but I do remember in the 80s, we would try to write rap. We would try to write our little rhymes and a little rap songs. And mine always sounded like an 80s rap. And he mentioned, he put his in there, the one that you're referring to. He put his in there and he said it probably sounds very familiar to Method Man.
Yes.
The Method Man verse in Sweet Love. And I thought about that like, that reminds me of my 80s rap. Because in 80s, all the rap songs started with your name.
Yes.
My name is whatever. And then it was like this 4-word line and 4-line stanzas, right? They were really short and they rhyme. It was like this ABAB rhyme. And that's what and that's what I remember. That's what mine sounds like. And just a few years later, it still sounds like that. So I will not be using any poetry to get anybody because that's not I don't have that skill. I don't have that ability.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about how he actually, when he first started, how he actually plagiarized. He was actually trying to win Tracy. He was copying some of the artists, and it changing a little bit here and there to customize it to Tracy.
Okay. Wait, Elegant Granny. Now, I just need the people in the room to be honest with me. How many of us did that? I remember my cousins. We would always back then. Now you can go online and just search for the lyrics and get the lyrics. But back then we had to hit the rewind, and get the lyrics and try to figure out what they were saying. And they didn't have them on the album cover and all that good stuff. But many of us use the lyrics from a song or a rap song whether it was R&B or rap, we used those lyrics and just we
Mhm.
inserted our name, we inserted the other person's name, we did little tweaks. I think we did some plagiarism. Now we didn't publish them, so I guess it
Right.
wasn't true plagiarism, but we did do a little owl, weird owl kind of twist on them. We did kind of, just sort of, even if we were just singing the song, we would just kind of tailor it. Like if it said him, I said her, whatever. We just kind of changed the pronouns. We did that little tweaking. So I just want people to know, like, he did it, but he's not the only one. Let's be
No,
real.
he's not the only one. He's not the only one.
Not all of us are original poets.
Yeah, but that's how he started. But then as time went on and he got over Tracy, he
Oh,
came into his own.
yeah.
He came into when he realized that when reality hit and his ordeal with trying to woo Tracy was actually a validation for himself, and he got over that.
Mhm.
He dealt with that. That's when his poetic flow, the authenticity, his originality came forth.
Yeah.
And that's when he started becoming really known more for that in school, because that authenticity was just flowing. So that was the beautiful part. The most beautiful part was realizing that Tracy was more for validating himself and
Right.
not for actually being in a relationship with her, which is probably what, and it doesn't say that, that's probably what she figured,
Mhm.
but it was never said. He kept it on him, on his whole internalizing everything, which was cool because you actually get to see the evidence. I'm telling y'all, if y'all haven't gotten this book, you actually watching
I
this
know
man
it,
more.
and he does it.
You watch him morph, he evolves. You watching him morph, and it's like a beautiful thing. You actually watching a caterpillar becoming a beautiful butterfly through this whole thing. It's just wonderful to watch. It really is.
Yeah. And I really like the one that's actually included. It's like 3-4 pages that
Yeah.
he actually includes, and he says, but Black woman, I'm still here.
Yes.
And he's like,
Yes.
Black woman, I'm here for you. So I think that even though he's he he's seeking the validation, and he actually changes his preference. I'm not going to get into that because I want y'all to read the book, but he actually changes his preference. But even still, when he writes the poem, he still has this longing for the Black woman. I
Yes.
I just, just had to throw
Yeah.
that in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
that's pretty much chapter 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
y'all gotta check it out. Check it out. Okay. So now let's move into now chapter 4. There's a shift. Like chapter 3, I found, it was like this love poem, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it just read, even read that way. Like it was this love story and embedded in poetry. And so, but I think chapter 4 kind of shifts, and then we get into some seriousness. And
Mm-hmm.
then it just like, whoa, wait, I thought we were in love. What?
Yeah.
And then it shifts and it talks about, and the chapter 4 is entitled Your Turn. And we'll talk about what that means, as we go on. But in that, he pulls out some interesting topics. One that's really, I think, that's seamless throughout is this idea of socioeconomic status and being poor, and always, and when you're poor, how you, or you have don't have as much, how you're always battling against these outside forces. You're always trying to get out. You're always trying to do better. You're always trying to mitigate circumstances that keeps pushing you down and setting you back. And so I think chapter 4 really gets into that. And so it was a dramatic shift for me, just in the energy. It's like, oh, okay, like, so because then I started, we start thinking about reminiscing growing up, and then it went to, whoa, wait, but I also remember this. So I think that there's this also this other thing happening between the chapters, how it
Mhm.
goes between this idea of um, things that you need to talk about, but they seem to be more a little lighter in essence, rather than you get to some of the heavier topics. And chapter 4 does that for me. And so I found myself hanging out in chapter 4 a little longer than I did in chapter 3 because there were so many things that I wanted to talk about. For instance, he talks about the post traumatic brokenness disorder. And
Mhm.
this idea of once you've been broke, um, that you're always waiting kind of for the other shoe to drop. You're always expecting um when something happens and it's similar to a past experience, how you expect it to happen. So one, he talks about his car being repossessed. So part of your turn, I think he talks about his parents being broke or poor, and then him being broke, right? And I think he talks about when his car was repossessed, and then all of a sudden when he hear a truck backing up with the beep, he would think, even though he didn't have his car, even though there was nothing to repossess, he would still have that feeling of, oh, they're coming to get my car. And so I think that's what he means by post-traumatic brokenness disorder. And I remember talking about a version of that. It wasn't with brokenness, it was more with the cops. Like now that I hear sirens, I just expect like, okay, am I good? Was I speeding? My registration
Yeah.
okay? Like you still have that experience associated with whatever, that feeling associated with that experience, whatever it was. And in this particular chapter, he talks about brokenness.
I found a article he actually did in the New York Times where he breaks that down even further.
Ooh.
And I'll send you the
So
link to that.
yeah, share it into the group in the reading community. So share it into
Okay,
the women's group. Yeah.
I will. I will. And he breaks it down very good. He breaks it down, and it posted in the New York Times, um, July the 9th, 2018.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago.
So that's good. And so that's what I think this book does. It makes you think about like going deeper. I found myself getting on the computer and searching some things. Like this is a memoir, so it's not fiction. So even though it reads that way,
Mhm.
but I find myself wanting to go and look up certain things. I'm wanting to
Yeah.
go back and reference. Hey Lizzie, how are you? It's been a long time, girlfriend. We'll have to catch up. So,
What I,
all right.
what I also liked about this chapter, he talked about him and his mom used to play this game when he was younger, and they would take turns finding each other or whatever like that, and he would find her, or she would find him, and she would say your turn, or either she would sneak up on him when he was unaware and come and grab him, and she would say your turn. Well, by the end of the chapter, because he talks about she was so magical, like she could really make things happen, like we were discussing earlier. She could really make things happen. And so what's significant for me is the title of that particular chapter, Your Turn, when she tags him at the end, because I think this is also the chapter when the parents actually buy a house. They actually buy a house. But before he realizes they buy a house, she tells him that they're thinking of buying a house, and she wants him to come see it. And then when they get there, look at it, she tells him, no, we actually bought this house. And so it's still referring to back how his mom is magical, making things happen no
Yeah.
matter what goes on. The obstacles that he's watched him go through. And then it's one day she's cooking, and he smells this familiar smell of her cooking. He says she must have cooked French toast and bacon and whatever else. So he gets up, put his t-shirt on, his sweatpants, and goes to the bathroom to get washed up. And all of a sudden, these ghostly hands come and grab him, and she says, your turn. So it's almost like, okay, now it's your turn to show the magic that you possess.
Right. Yeah, and
That's
I
what
like
I
when
got
he
out of
said,
that.
yeah, and I like when he says on page 84, when I was young, she had convinced me she was magic. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that he says things like that, and he was talking in terms of what you're talking about, like her playing games and doing these, just appearing out of anywhere, like that kind of magic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it means more than that, like her ability to keep the household together, to support his dad and all that stuff, because they went from losing a house to owning a house. And
Mm-hmm.
so and all of that, she was there and kind of this the glue that kind of kept it all together. So I think that, in saying that, he's talking about the game she would play and
Mm-hmm.
how she was magical in that sense, how he just didn't know how she did it, but also just being magic, like her just having that special touch kind of magic.
Yeah. And not only that she played the game, but she won the game.
Yes.
So that's
Of
the reason
course.
why she was always saying your turn, because she actually won, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was my favorite part,
Yeah.
of that.
And some other things before we wrap up, just some other things that he talks about. We probably won't get into it, but I just want to mention that he talks about. So I'm going through my pages so y'all hear me turning the pages. Sorry. But talks about this idea of financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And when talking about the home ownership in the home, and how he talked about how he didn't really know about credit, loans, any of that stuff, bank loans, mortgages, down payments, that he didn't really know about that. He didn't even understand the concept of home ownership, because that wasn't something that he imagined for himself. And so I think these are some topics that as a community we need to address, as well as the topic of what is that invisible force that we allude to that's really keeping us down. And I think he offers in this chapter, one thing that he equates that to. And he says, and I'm going to read a little bit, so y'all excuse me, because I think his words are better than mine would be. The source of that invisible force, that unstoppable inertia, that kept teasing them, that kept allowing them to break through for a stretch before tripping them up and pulling them back again. This idea that you try to get out, you try to get out, you try to, build your wealth, but you just can't, right? That would lay lament until it saw it fit to remind them it was there, is obvious to me now. White supremacy is so gargantuan and mundane that sometimes its existence and its proficiency can't be measured, addressed, or even seen without a stark change in perspective. It isn't like gravity, it is gravity. It is a ceaseless pressure intended to keep blackness ground bound and sick. It's just that blackness in America meant that setbacks like the parents getting their car stolen in 1990 were tsunami. And I think that that's kind of what all of this is grounded of. Like each chapter he talks about what is holding him back. And sometimes it's himself, and sometimes it's himself because of his mindset, because of what society has. Um, yes, you need this book, Lizzie. It's so good. It's a memoir, but I promise you, it reads like fiction as far as the ease of it. And he addresses so many topics from the Black male perspective that, oh my goodness, we wish we had some men on here to discuss with us. So any men
Yeah.
out there that want to read with us, come read with us. Because when we get to chapter 6, we need you. When we get to chapter
Yeah.
5, we need you. We need your
Yeah.
voices. But it is a great read. And his style is a little different, so those of you that want something very boring and a little Charlie Brownish for lack of a better word, just kind of monotone. That's not this book. This book
No, it's not.
it's really thoughtful, thought provoking, insightful, and it has some humor. Like you see all of his personality, which is really cool. And
Mhm.
there's so much that we're not discussing because we don't want to be before you like all day, but there's so much that can be discussed that definitely definitely warrant follow-up discussions. So, which means we're going to save chapter 6 for another time because there's so much to discuss in chapter 6. But yes. So anything
Yes.
else in chapter 5 that we may, I mean 4, before we move on?
I think that was it.
Okay. All right. So do we want to tackle chapter 5 or do we want to leave it?
I would like to, because
okay, let's go.
To me, it ties in with chapter 3, because
yes,
we go back to chapter 3, setting it up, where his love interest Tracy, and then he gets to the end. The realization is his longing for Tracy was actually a validation for himself. Where in chapter 5, it switches to back to the question. Remember, I told you about the question that his best friend, Brian, his childhood best friend, mom asked Brian, does he have like a girlfriend or something? Because she never, ever, ever saw Damon with a girl. It was always in his spare time. He spent a lot of time with her son, right. So that he overheard her ask that question. So in his mind, even in his adulthood, that question still stuck in his brain. And that's what made him work so hard for Tracy, and he never got her. That he realized that it was a validation for self. But by the end of chapter 5, he realized, or because he ended up with another relationship with a young lady. Her name is Teresa. And then
something about these C's.
Yes. And there's this thing where he's toggling between, like, this question is there this for a man, especially for a Black man, soft versus gay.
That's what I was going to bring up next. I wanted us to talk about that on page 89 about the question. And so those of you that are here, what is the definition of soft or being soft? When we say that someone is being soft, for those of you who are familiar with the definition of that, not the dictionary definition, not the denotation, but the connotation of that word. What does it mean? What do you think it means? Just put it in the comments, because that's what one of his questions. What is the real definition of being soft? What does being soft mean? And so put that in the comments, because it's going to go into what she's about to say. So I'm going to let you finish, but I wanted that.
Yeah, especially when it deals with men. Especially when it
deals with men and talking about being soft. What does that mean? What does that truly mean? Because as Elegant Granny said, he did mention that there's a difference between being soft and being gay. Mm-hmm. And so how are those two connected or not connected? And what does it mean to be soft? So that's my question to you as she finishes her thought. What does it mean to be soft if you're a male? If you're referring to a male? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's where it goes back.
Here we go. We got an answer here.
Okay, what?
Nerdy or wimpy? Okay. And that's two different, and I think that's two different ideas too.
Yes.
Like to be nerdy versus being wimpy. Like, anyway. Yeah. I'll let you finish, but because I can go into that too. Like that's two different things for me, and that means something different depending on which way you use it. Yes. And I think wimpy is maybe more of what we're talking about today versus the nerdy. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, because nerdy
I'm going to stop interrupting you.
Yeah, nerdy is so good. Because nerdy, to me, is like on a whole different level. Wimpy, I think is more closely related to it. But I'm glad he put that in there because
there are nuances, because there's differences, and it depends on how you use it and who you're referring to, as to how it's received, received by the person. Like if you're calling someone soft, and it just depends on their characteristics, let's just be honest, their characteristics as to how they'll take that word. And so that's why we're asking right now, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope, what is the definition of being soft? Yeah. If you're referring to a man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because throughout this chapter, it goes to while he and his best friend Brian, they're in college, they're going to two separate different colleges. And even just like they were around each other a lot, playing around as kids, now they're on the phone together a lot, talking. So, but it's that so his best friend Brian has these girlfriends or a girlfriend. Every time you turn around, he has a girlfriend, but he is still dealing with Tracy at the time. And it was the same.
No,
go ahead. Oh, and so it's like he's still, so in his mindset, he doesn't really say it, but it's implied. Okay, I'm still talking about Tracy. So if he talks to his mom again and the mom wants to ask about me, he can say, oh, he got Tracy.
Yeah.
To validate.
And that's what I was going to say. It depends on the time. Like right now during a pandemic, if you're on the phone with, if a guy is on the phone with another guy for a long period of time, or Zoom is like, that's the only communication we have. But
yeah.
And then, or whether you have a girl or you don't, that makes a difference. Like all of that, all those factors play into how it's perceived, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Ambassador says lacking as a leader or ruler of your home. Ooh, so that's also soft.
Yeah.
Mainly it means this man, maybe there's missing a word. Let me get it right. Is he secure in his life? Ooh.
That's a good one.
So yeah. Hey Wes, how's it going? I'm here. I'm here and there. So yes, can this man hold his own? Thank you. I probably should have figured that out. Use my context clues, did some self-correcting. But yeah. I just wanted to read some of those comments. They were coming in.
Yeah. That was a good one, though. And you know what? That would make a good topic on your tea time that you do during the week. That would be, I'm serious. We should save that. Earmark that.
Okay. It's about the man. Can a man hold his own?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah,
that one. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm putting it down for Tammy Talk.
Yeah, that would be a good one. That would really be a good one. And thank you, Ambassador, because that's a really good one. But yeah,
we're still in it. I'm not plagiarizing. We're still in it. We're letting you know.
That's Robin. It's not still it's Robin. I know because he's aware of it.
He's aware of it.
Yeah, he's aware of it. But yeah, so he's still dealing with that, and so it's kind of implied, that the validation and everything, and so by the end with his ordeal with Teresa, it doesn't really go into a whole lot with it because they were only together 2 years, and he realized when they broke up, and it wasn't a bad breakup, it was kind of a sweet breakup. They realized they didn't have anything in common. And that particular relationship was actually like a Love Jones relationship. But instead of going off into the sunset, they broke up. But it was consensual breaking up.
Yeah.
And he in the realization here, just like in chapter 3, the realization was his ordeal with Tracy was a validation of self. This one with Teresa was a validation of others, because also in this chapter, he was dealing with hearing students and other teachers and the guards and things wanting to know if he was gay.
Yeah.
And that's what that whole chapter is about. And I'm not going to tell y'all the story. Y'all gonna have to get the book and get the story for yourself. Yes. Because when I tell you what he's dealing with internally as a man, especially as a Black man, I personally experience Black men in my community or even in my travels internalizing issues like this, and I see how they self-sabotage themselves because of this one particular question. is he gay or is he just soft? Do he have any girlfriends? I see so many of our Black men self-sabotage themselves, trying to validate themselves as a full Black man. I'm not gay. I am a man. And they self-sabotage themselves by just grabbing somebody to look like, so it can look to
And
you
that's a
that,
whole subject on the self, like just date
yes,
anybody just to date them, so you're not
yes.
alone. That's a whole nother
Oh,
subject.
write that one down for top 10 topics.
That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
And he even
Yep.
mentioned, he says, everyone moves. The last line of the chapter, he says, everyone moves at their own pace. But I
Yes.
think that's something that is a constant conversation in the community, is
Mm-hmm.
looking at, who are you with? And that's what people always want to know. When you gonna get married? If you're single, when you gonna get married? And then when you get married, when you gonna have kids? And when you have kids, when you gonna get, it's always this thing, like pushing you into things that you're not ready for, or you just don't want to do it.
Exactly.
And I think, could it have something to do with his upbringing, raised by one parent? In his case, he actually was raised by both parents. So in his case, maybe not. But I think in some men's case, possibly. You're a man, you tell us. We're women here. We're just going by, our experiential based on our community where we are. But yeah. People trying to live vicariously through you. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, societal pressure. Absolutely. And I think that's what he addresses in this chapter. Societal pressure. He was like, how masculine, how straight, how Black do you have to be? And those are some of the questions that he addresses in this chapter, is like all those things that we're talking about, but he also addresses those chapters. And at one point he even asked that, like, how masculine, how straight or heterosexual, or how Black do you have to be? What does that mean? So I think societal pressure is definitely one of the things he talks about, which we mentioned in chapter 4. Like, even though he's talking about this thing that he's dealing within himself and his identity, his sexual identity, and how that is portrayed by other people, even though he knows he's heterosexual, that societal pressure, and where is it coming from? Is it something that's more systemic and systematic, rather than something that's just he puts on himself? Is that something based on society and the way society has been set up and the way we give into those norms and pressures? So yeah. When we're getting married or when you're having kids, yes, absolutely. They want, I guess so, people want to live vicariously through you when they asking those questions, but they're constantly asking, like, hey, first things first, like, can I get some money first?
Yeah.
One parent could have been in the home mostly while the other parent was always at work. Exactly. So even though you live with two people, who's actually the one that's contributing to your growth and development? So I can see that. I can see that too. Remember, you said the mother was the glue to hold everything together. Exactly. Yes, because the father did work. The father was the one who was making sure that they didn't lose their house and everything. Like, he did that.
When he wasn't jobless, because in
When
some
he
of
wasn't
yeah,
job.
because the father was at home more than the mother was, actually, because the father was always jobless, because I think he was with an insurance company or something like that, and they were laying off or something like that. So a lot of his upbringing was actually more from his father than his mom, because her work was actually steady.
Right.
But
Well, I guess when I say that, I meant the one that had the dominant role as far as the stable things.
Yes, the stable things. Yeah, it was his mom. Yeah, yeah. Because his dad was kind of mischievous, just as he was. But not a bad mischievous,
Your
though.
turn.
Yeah, Yeah, not a bad mischievous though. Not a bad mischievous.
But
But yeah,
y'all should definitely check out this book. Like, we've only touched on
yes.
a few things in the chapters. We are through chapter 5. We were going to go to chapter 6, but we decided before the broadcast to wait and do that separate. So we'll do that the next time we come before you. So if you haven't gotten the book, let me see. Let me get my directions together here. What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker by Damon Young. If you haven't gotten the book, get the book. Join us. Down there scrolling, you'll see the link to join the community to discuss. And if you want to come on, if you do decide to read, you want to come on live with us, we're looking for more people to join us live. We have several people, we have quite a few people reading with us, but we want you to come on live with us to share your thoughts. And it may be live as in the comments, where you just share in the comments your thoughts and views on things that we're saying. So Elegant Granny has been so gracious to discuss this with me, to brave it with me, because we know the topics in here are a bit, people shy
But
away.
they need to be had.
They need to be had, and we're really not going in depth. Let me just put a disclaimer. We're not going in depth. We're just throwing them against the wall and letting you think about them and letting them resonate. And of course, we'll be doing some more discussions within the group, but publicly here, we're just kind of giving you some highlights. And so we want you to definitely read with us. So one, you can share in the comments, or you can come online with us. So Elegant Granny, any final thoughts on what we talked about today, on anything? And of course, you can tell people how to connect with you and all that good stuff before we wrap up for today.
I just want to say, y'all, please get this book. Men, if you are listening, if you are in our field of hearing, come in on the discussion. We want your perspective along with his perspective, because this is something that is important. A lot of our men, they are heard in their behavior, but not in their voice. So we need your actual vocal voice, not your behavior voice. We want your vocal voice in on this discussion, whether you're on here live and other people can see you, or whether in the comments. Please come in with us, join in this conversation, because this is good. This is good stuff. And this will also help us in understanding, when you're communicating with us vocally and in an intimate setting, as far as like in conversation, we can actually process what you're saying a lot better. It will also clue us in on when there is something bothering you, how we can actually appropriately respond to you a lot better. The Ambassador, trust me, you will enjoy this book. I'm serious. Please join us next week when we come back. Please do. But I am Elegant Granny. You can find me in my Linktree, /Elegant Granny. And you can also find me on my podcast called Proactive Eye, and that is bit.ly/Proactive Eye. You can find me Proactive Eye everywhere. And I talk a lot about discussions on domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual assault and sexual violence, child abuse, and also suicide prevention as it relates to abuse. So most everything I deal with encompasses around abuse. That's the reason why, as Elegant Granny, I supply educational support for the supporters, the friends and the family of those who are victims and survivors of abuse. So that's how you can find me. And y'all, please, this book, I'm telling you, as the kids say, this is so dope.
It is. And I almost gave in to the societal pressure, as Lizzie said, but no, to the group pressure, because this was the one that the group picked. But I kept going, like, I don't know if they are ready for it, like just the discussion. Mm-hmm. And I kind of shot away, but I was like, no, we're gonna do this. We're gonna have this discussion. Oh my goodness, this is the best summer read. Oh
yes, it is.
It's the best summer read, because there's an entertaining aspect, but it's true, it's real and authentic, And it really gets you think about some of the things that's been in the news and that we've been talking about these days. So yeah, so
Mhm.
you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. And you can always send me a DM and connect with me that way too. Thank you.
The sacred lotus, hola.
Yes. So if you want to read with us, you can join us. We're just on chapter 5. It's quick and it goes by. Just need a little time to yourself, quiet time, and you can get there with us. We'll be starting with chapter 6 next week. Next Thursday, we'll be back. I will announce the time. Typically, it's around noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, but it just depends on those that come live with me and Elegant Granny's schedule, because she is doing the most. She's going to school. She has a couple of businesses. She's doing podcasts. She's doing some everything. So I try to work with her schedule and anyone else who comes live. So we'll be back next Thursday, picking up with chapter 6. So read chapter 6 through 9. Get through chapter 9. And yes, sweet Reese, get the book, get the book, get the book, get the book. She says, hola. Hello to you. Yes. And so we'll be talking about some other things. And chapter 6 is loaded. So we may be hanging out in chapter 6 quite a bit next week. But we will. So we know that for sure. But we hope that you will join us live. Those of you on the replay, be sure you comment. Come back and comment. If you're coming in just now or you left and came back, go back to the beginning. We talked a lot about many of the topics in here at the beginning, and then we just kind of got into some of our commentary and looking at the comments toward the end. So definitely go back, check it out. Make sure you comment if you're on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook, you can comment after the broadcast. If you're on Periscope, thank you for being here. And you can anytime you have a question, you can inbox me if you want to know more about where we are, what we're reading, when we're reading. You can do that. Make sure y'all follow me. I am on Instagram. I usually post updates on Instagram and let me get this right. Hello. On Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And so you can connect with me at any of those handles on any of those platforms. Dr. Tammy Francis, everywhere. YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. Instagram, Facebook. So you can connect with me. And that's usually where I put the updates and where we are and the time of the discussion. That's when I post the announcements when we'll be back here. And make sure y'all connect with Elegant Granny. Make sure y'all follow her and connect with her, because she's been so gracious to join me live this last couple of weeks. She and I in the trenches, everyone else in the group. We talked to them in the group, but they're like, they don't know about coming live. So we're pushing the envelope, and so we welcome your comments and in the your comments and questions, and appreciate you being here. Thank you all for joining us live or via the replay. I am Dr. Tammy. And let me get this right. There we go. That way, in case she wants to comment or anything. I am Dr. Tammy, and this has been another week's discussion over the book, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker by Damon Young. And we hope that you will join us in discussing the book for this summer that we are finishing up. We are discussing now. And if you haven't gotten it, you can still get it. There's still time. We welcome you to join us on this journey. We're hoping that it'll translate into action. We translate that it'll translate into you altering how your mindset shift, and or how you interact with others, and what else you read, and the other things that you read, and where it leads you to. And so like Elegant Granny says, she has another article that he's written in relationship to some of the topics in here. So we'll be posting that in the group. So those of you that are in the group, I'll share that with you, or she'll share it with you in there. And hey, Ambassador just ordered the book. Woo, 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 woo.
Good.
Yay. So
I hope you join us next
joining
week.
us either in the comments or here on the screen to discuss. Yes, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker by Damon Young. I'm messing. Let me get out of here. I'm getting delirious. It's been one of those days. I've just been all over the place. And so it's still, apparently, it's still happening. So thank you all for joining us live or via the replay. We hope you will be back next week with us as we're discussing starting with chapter 6 through 9. We'll see you soon. Y'all take care. Have a great day. And yeah, keep reading.